What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch. Today, we're going to be breaking down the early show match that took place yesterday with Overwatch League pros, trying out Overwatch 2 and the new game mode push. A lot of big announcements were sprinkled across this stream. We're going to try to collect some of the biggest information. Keep in mind, the clock is ticking for the next season start date, which has been confirmed to be April of next year, which if they want any type of beta time prior to that lands in Overwatch 2 beta, where all these changes become a reality mere months away. I hope you're excited, because I am. We got a lot to talk about right after the break. But first, a message from today's video sponsor, Manscaped. Back again, supporting us and supporting our VIPs. Manscaping with the wrong equipment can feel like putting your family jewels right down the garbage disposal. But all that changed for me when I became a Manscaped customer myself a few years ago, and now I can't stop talking about him. Mostly thanks to the star of the show, the Lawn Mower 4.0 is a masterpiece of a design, and the key feature is the white skin-safe technology that protects you from the blade when shaving near your sensitive areas. And I always like to show this every time. I know I'm sure it gets boring at this point, but it's difficult to hurt yourself with this thing. That's what makes it so great. But with the Performance 4.0 package, you get the rest of this stuff too. I haven't told you about this yet. This is the Shed. Feels good, water resistant, and is really big. Is gonna fit everything you need. Manscaped boxer briefs, and of course, ball toner and ball deodorant. You could be fresh all over. To make the deal even sweeter, the Performance package comes with the Weed Whacker now too, and I've fallen in love with this thing, which makes the obnoxious nose and ear hairs a breeze to get rid of. How good do you feel after a haircut? The rest of you can feel that good too. Pick one of these up today. You're gonna wanna click the link in the description to head on over to manscaped.com and use our promo code Overwatch20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order and free shipping. First, important corrections from yesterday's video. Note that Bastion's artillery shells in fact do 600 damage per shot, 300 on impact, and 300 splash that falls off. He still looks pretty weak in my opinion. We'll talk more about him later. But the bigger detail that I missed is that Sombra's amplified damage for targets under hack only applies to her as a hero passive. See, Jeff Goodman was like, hack is core to Sombra's kit, and I'm still in the mind state of Overwatch 1 balance as well as the character. So I'm thinking like, well, you hack something in order to set it up for your team. No. That's not the philosophy of the new Sombra or even Overwatch 2 overall. So this is an even bigger change than I thought of originally, and quite a lot more balance than I originally thought. You'll notice in the gameplay in the background, every time a Reinhardt has Earth Shatter, his Sombra teammate will set up one of these stealthy hacks in the new version of its teamwork effect, which is to say, you get 1 second of interruption of the enemy having lights out, no abilities, for your teammates to make use of your hack. Because frankly, wall hacks I don't think is as significant as losing your abilities, and that's the main benefit they get during the hack duration, right? Hack is basically just for Sombra, other than that 1 second of combo potential, which makes me love this change even more, because it indicates that Blizzard is willing to go really far in overlapping hero identities. This is a big change, and I don't think a lot of people realize it. Overwatch 1's development, you think pre-roll queue, pre the community demanding the game to make sense, heroes were radically diverse. Some were useless, some were superpowered, but they all had to be unique. That was really important to the dev team. The problem is when you come to a point where it's like, well, having an anchor tank is the best thing to play around. Well, how do we make one that's like that but different? Then we have all the reworks to Orisa, right? Where, man, just shooting shields is really boring. Maybe we'll make her more of a brawler. But if they started trying to make an alternate version of Reinhardt to begin with, I think that development would have went a lot smoother. I bring that up because this new version of Sombra breaks a lot of original Overwatch 1 design rules that they just simply wouldn't have done before. As an example, another version of wall hack, it's like, well, Hanzo's recon dart already does that in the mid fight. So you've got another ability that overlaps there. The backline assassin playstyle, Sombra is going to play a lot more similar to Tracer, but with some combo potential, right? As opposed to the Overwatch 1 versions where she was far more supportive and just an entirely different way to play. Now, with the advent of role queue being a focus for the team, there's a lot more overlap for heroes to be defined in their role, which didn't exist at the launch of the game. There's a lot of players that won't be a big fan of this, but I think if you're a competitive player, this is what you want to hear. This is more in line with the Riot style of balancing, where agents in Valorant or champions in League are built around some design principles where there's overlap so that you can always get familiar but fun and balanceable gameplay from the new characters that come through. I don't want to get your hopes up too much of like the game will be balanced perfectly and stuff, but I just mean it's a lot easier to balance the game with this in mind as opposed to maximizing the uniqueness of a hero, because that's what made Overwatch's balancing throughout the years so difficult, because, well, if you don't have that competitive foundation, well, the game's just going to make up new rules of like, now you got to play all the tanks. Well, now you got to play all the snipers or whatever, right? It makes the balance really wacky as opposed to simplifying it to a shooter game. Okay, that's a lot of information. Is Sombra's 50% damage amplification for herself overpowered? I'm going to say maybe even not, since it's only for herself. Keep in mind that it takes time to cast the hack. And in many situations, you might just feel that the target will have a faster time to kill if you just shoot. Amplifying her damage brings her up to like a Reaper time to kill or something. So you can effectively transform your damage type into a better damage character when you hack a target, but I don't think it's going to set the world on fire. And of course they always can tune that back. So it doesn't scare me in any way now that I know the truth that it's a passive just for her. And in fact, I'm excited because this has bigger ramifications for the whole game, I think. If they follow this philosophy through Overwatch 2, it might mean that heroes that come out may be a bit less unique, but they won't be as broken. And when I say broken, I don't mean just unbalanced and too strong. I mean, they force you to play the game in a very unfun way. That's the worst case scenario, right? I can deal with something being too strong, but it molding the gameplay to now all of a sudden be a different game that we didn't sign up for, designing this way should avoid that. They said some very important things in the live stream, like they want tanks to have most of the crowd control. Well, then these characters like Mei or Symmetra, do they get another rework? Because part of the problem with Overwatch 1's balance is that damage heroes got all the fun toys. A lot of kits that traditionally would be support kit in a MOBA got put onto damage characters, mainly because role queue wasn't invented at the time when that began. It's almost like damage became the catch-all for things that didn't heal or tank. I think it's safe to assume that if you're in the damage category, your hero is about dealing damage, which is why Jeff Goodman at the start of the stream brought up that they're trying a lot of things, some of which might not stick. You'd assume that the Sombra and Bastion ones are, since they're showing it now, but he mentioned that they're trying Doomfist as a tank, which follows the rules, right? Like, if they want to keep his crowd control in any way, well, maybe he's got to be the tank for the team, so he can follow those competitive rules. I think as you start to collect these different data points, it really starts to take shape the type of gameplay we should come to expect from Overwatch 2. And that is simply, it's going to feel like a shooter game that has defined rules, as opposed to new rules that get reinvented every hero release. At least I hope so. I think you can see from the gameplay in the background that Overwatch 2 is a much more direct and simplified shooter game. As Aaron Keller goes to explain in his interview segment, you'll still need a lot of teamwork and strategy and cooperation. And although being up a pick or two definitely snowballs faster in 5v5, there's also bigger opportunities for an individual to make a carry impact. And the way I want to describe this, it's not like other shooter games don't require teamwork and Overwatch 1 is some special thing. In Overwatch 1, if your team just walked together around your tanks better than the enemy, you had a massive advantage. Now that there's only one tank, the downside of a mistake in that is dropped significantly. And instead, what you'll want to improve to get your gameplay ready for Overwatch 2 is your timing of engagement angles and crossfires and flank timings. That's what's going to really be important. Principles that were definitely important in the dive era, for example, going in with your team at the same time on a collapse is going to be more important. And something that I realized as well pretty quickly is that I anticipate the ability tracking to just be simply easier. And what I mean is, over the years, we've taught what I think is the fundamental foundation of Overwatch skill, which I call RPM, or the Overwatch version of APM, but reactions per minute. How many things can you track moment to moment in the game? It's radically different from gold to diamond. The speed at which you can even process what's going on is so important in Overwatch 1 because you might just be clueless on the state of the battlefield and unable to interact with it just because you didn't realize what cooldowns are being used or where the state of the regroup was and all those things. That'll still be core to Overwatch in a way, but I think it's simplified to the shooter foundations of playing around cover and setting up your own angles, which are more similar to Call of Duty, Valorant, etc. To that point, in Space's interview, he said DPS players are going to have a really good time. Tanks just felt like tankier DPS. And the new push game mode felt like Call of Duty with how fast-paced it was. What I'm hoping to get out of this is less ability spam, less moments where you're watching a match and both teams have a sim wall and a Mei wall and a teleporter over here and there's turrets over there and 3 ults are popping off at once. That's way too complicated. Take a tank out of the mix, make some more refined rules on which characters have crowd control, or what each role is supposed to do, and build the foundation around that. I think we're beginning to see the philosophy. Sombra's disable of enemy abilities going down to a second only is a massive philosophy change. One that I think we can expect to be replicated in the other heroes that need to be reworked. In his interview, Aaron Keller said that all 32 heroes will be playable by the time the pros are playing next April on the early build of Overwatch 2. That means multiple will need to be reworked and announced probably between now and then, and as well, he said maybe a few more heroes will come then as well. At least by April or earlier than that, we're gonna have multiple hero announcements. Overall, a few concluding points after watching this gameplay multiple times. I like how straightforward it is. I think it's gonna be easier to play, spectate, and learn. Much easier for your individual skill to matter in gameplay. Easier for them to balance now that the roles are more harshly defined. Remember, the game's having role passives as well, which I think just adds into that whole theme of trying to build the game around role queue now for real. I will note that Bastion looks pretty whack at the pro level, but probably will be just fine for average players. I imagine if you're at a tier of play that doesn't quickly respect the turret form transformation, or maybe you're out of sync with your tank, you'll see him shred some targets, but the pros didn't seem to find him to be too much of a trouble. I will say though, if you master that sticky bomb he shoots, perhaps that's where you'll see the higher tier Bastion play start to shine. But with that as well, I think we can expect that to be the norm for being good at any hero. It already is the case in Overwatch 1 that it's largely just about landing your abilities, but we still have that extra tank, we have the old rule set, and the old balance. So a lot of those hectic Overwatch 1 principles still apply, whereas in Overwatch 2, they're removing a lot of that chaos. Remember as well, they're removing 2CP in favor of this push map that only lasted 10 minutes. So they're taking out one of the potentially longest maps for a map that looks like it might reliably finish pretty quick. I wonder what that means for our current map pool that we know is transferring over. Are they happy with the overtime principles of like hybrid, for example? Do we really like playing King's Row to a 5-4 scoreline? If they were going to go back to stopwatch, let's say, or other competitive format rulings, now would be the time for them to start to announce these things. And with the sequel, they kind of have free reign to overhaul the whole game. So I'm on the edge of my seat to see the next thing they're going to announce. To make sure you don't miss out on our further coverage of Overwatch 2, click the bell icon next to the subscribe button to make sure you get notifications sent directly to your cell phone. It's like I'm sliding in your DMs. Don't miss the next Your Overwatch video. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to head over to check out our sponsor today, Manscaped, and get 20% off and free shipping of your entire order by using our promo code OVERWATCH20. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.